So, welcome to another glorious day in the Essex countryside. Now this is KTM's entry-level adventure bike. It uses the same 373cc water-cooled 4-stroke motor that's found in the 390 Duke, and that's a cracking little motor, and it's been put now into an adventure-ready frame, so it's a bit taller, a fraction longer. But what is it like as an actual adventure bike? Let's start with some of the key numbers. So this little 373cc motor puts out 46 horsepower and 37 newton meters of torque, which doesn't sound like very much, but you have to remember that this bike also only weighs 158 kilos dry, and with a 14.5 litre tank, you're not adding that much weight to the top of that. So even with my 15 stone bulk on top of it, it's a really nippy little machine. It's really punchy, that motor. You do have to stir the gearbox a little bit more, but that's going to be the same with any single cylinder. So let's cover off some of the other key numbers. The seat height, which is one thing that might surprise people, is 855 millimeters, so relatively tall, and that makes for a decent size. I'm 5'10" with a 32-inch inseam, and it's just about the perfect seat height for me. I can easily get the balls of my feet, if not flat feet, on the ground at that height. But because the bike's so light, it never really becomes too much of an issue. In terms of the suspension, up front we've got the WP Apex 43mm forks, and these, unlike the basic 790 Adventure, are adjustable for compression and rebound. And then we've got a WP Apex shock in the rear, which has adjustable preload. The bike has a single disc on the front and a single disc on the rear. Gripping onto those discs to bring you to a halt are a pair of Brembo Bibury calipers. The Bibury is Brembo's sort of budget range, but they don't feel like budget brakes. They work really well. I guess again they're not having a lot of weight to haul up, but I found them to be really nice and powerful, and there's a good feel through those as well. Oh, I'm going to stop going to driving instructor. Driving lesson. Actually, I think that's my neighbour. I'm trying not to make him nervous, but he is doing 21 in the 30 limit. Oh, mind the go. In terms of electronics, well, we've got the very clear TFT dash. I really like the dashes that they're using on the KTMs now. But there's very little in the way of features on this bike. There's no rider modes. You've got the ability to turn the traction control and the ABS off and on. Although I've said it hasn't got much in the way of electronics, in terms of functionality for maps and stuff, that's the case. But it does have lean sensitive traction control and ABS. And it just feels like a proper grown-up bike. It's a small capacity bike, and some people may kind of look down on it for that, but it feels very solid, and I think it's a great entry point for that adventure rider, particularly maybe young riders. If you're 19, you've just done your A2 license, this is a perfect entry-level bike. If you are taller, then this works, but by the same token, if you're of a smaller stature and bigger, heavier adventure bikes create a problem, then again this could be a really good solution. So finally, to cover off some of the other bits and pieces, or the important things, it's got a 19-inch wheel on the front, 17-inch wheel on the back, cast aluminium wheels, nice and lightweight, maybe not great for serious off-road, shod with TKC 70s from Continental, a really good dual sport tyre, and I found them grip to be perfect on tarmac. You don't really feel much in the way of vibrations from them. You get a little bit of a buzz. You also get a little bit of a buzz out of this bike. Being a single, you would expect that. It's all part of the character. But those tyres work well. Not had a chance to try them in the wet because it just hasn't rained since I've had the bike. And they're pretty good on gravel, even some soft mud. And we'll get to that a little bit later on. But it's nice to see a really good quality tyre on there, and it kind of sums up the rest of this bike. You know, the componentry is really good. It's a natty little thing. In terms of ergonomics, well, you sit quite high on the bike. Again, that gives it that sort of supermoto feel, I guess. The tank sits really low. You don't sit sort of in it. The seat is pretty comfortable. This is a two-piece seat. It's quite firm. I quite like firm seats. I think they, in the long run, they tend to be more comfortable than soft, squishy ones. And it was okay. I rode it back from Silverstone when I picked it up, and I took a cross-country route just to see what it was like, and I had all day to get back, and I was on the bike for about 3 hours. After about an hour and a half, I really needed to find somewhere to stop to get off, just to rest my butt cheeks. Now, some of that will be because I'm not used to the bike, but also, although it's firm, it's not necessarily the most comfortable seat. So nice wide bars, a nice reach on those as well. You don't feel like you're having to reach out forward to get them. They're kind of in that attack mode almost. The diamond shaped mirrors, which you don't get on the 790 Adventure R, I quite like these, although because of the way they're positioned, they do actually sit quite close to you. I'd probably like them to be a little bit further out, but you can't really rotate them without changing the angle of the levers. They're not a problem. You've got a pretty good view from them. The screen on this is adjustable, but not on the fly. So it's the same with the 790. You have to undo a star nut in the middle, and you can move it into 2 positions. But you've also got the opportunity then to completely remove it. So this is in its lowest position, and in its lowest position with my height, I found that that's throwing quite a lot of air into my chin area, which means I'm getting a good flow of air, but you might be able to pick up a little bit of noise on the helmet. In its higher position, that kind of throws it up a little bit higher. But with that off, you've then essentially got just a small fly screen over the speedo, and it almost then becomes like a naked bike. And I would suspect as well, looking at the designs, you've then got the ability to put a taller screen on this. You could take the tall screen from the standard 790 and put that on if you needed to. But around these kind of country lanes, it is an absolute blast to ride. So much fun, much more pokey than I expected it would be. The bike is quite happy purring along motorways at 70 miles an hour as well, and it feels pretty solid and planted despite the fact that it's a lightweight bike. So I'll just drop back and let that Audi go away. So there we go, 27 miles an hour in second gear to get an idea of the punchiness of it. And then we're up to 60 miles an hour. It's a fantastic little motor. It sounds a bit like an angry hairdryer, but that's not such a bad thing. It's not obnoxious. Now, despite the fact that this WP suspension is quite a sort of basic emulsion shock, it does a pretty good job of dampening things out. It's not too bouncy. Like every other KTM I've ridden, it's quite purposeful. Here we go, there's a little spot whilst the sun's out. Let's have a quick look around the bike. I do like the matte colourways that KTM are going for now. And I also like the fact, and I've said this before, that KTM don't put anything on the bike that's not really necessary, so they can keep the weight down. There's those TKC 70 tyres, really like those. The cast wheels, there's that great little 373 single. Nice broad comfy seat, ignore my super clamp there. So you have got bars on the back here for pillion. Nice tidy little exhaust. There you can see the adjustable shocks. But for what is a small capacity bike, it's got a bit of presence on the road. It's an unmistakable KTM. You put this up against one of the other adventure bikes, yes, it's going to look smaller, but you compare it to something like a 790 Duke, and it's kind of similar dimensions. I think they've done a really good job on it. And at a price of 5,495, I think it is on the road, even better. LED tail lights and indicators, LED front light. Again, I'm not a massive fan of the wasp style headlight, but I think it works well on here. So whilst I've got all this paraphernalia on, let's go and find some where a little bit rougher to ride. Oh, tractor. If you'd seen my recent Goldwing video, at the very start of that I had an interaction with some green laners, and where I was just down this road here, and actually that tree line there is the byway that they came down. So I've not been down it before. This might not work out well. We've had a lot of rain. They were on proper dirt bikes, but you know, this is the whole point of having a bike like this. You come along and go, oh, there's a byway there, I quite like the look of that, let's go and have a look. And that's precisely what I'm going to do. A bit muddy there. Now obviously you're limited in terms of the cast wheels for doing really rough stuff, but this looks like it's okay. It's dealing with this fine. The one thing I found with this bike is standing a little bit of, if you're taller, I've got to lean quite a bit for the bars, so standing doesn't necessarily work quite that well. But again, because of the lightness of this bike, it's not really a problem, and it's having no problems down here. This is actually, looks like quite a good fun trail. I've no idea where it goes. But yeah, this is the sort of stuff that I think most of these sort of bikes are going to be used on. I've seen people jumping these and pushing them really far. I haven't got the skills and capabilities to do that, but it's dealing with this stuff with no problems, getting a bit softer and a little bit more churned up here, but yeah, no problems at all. No idea where this goes. So I guess this is a tick in the box for the adventure part of the 390 adventure. It's pretty solid down here, predictable, no real surprises. The tyres seem to be working pretty well. This the darker section of the mud, or the dirt that you can see, is quite soft actually, a bit more sandy. I've not changed the traction control or the ABS on this, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Nice work, little 390. As I say, for this kind of these kind of roads, it's absolutely ideal. Low weight, manoeuvrable. It's quick enough for what you need. It stops quick. But by the same token, if you do want to take it on longer journeys, if you want to shove luggage on it and you want to go down the motorway, it's quite happy doing that as well. If you're going to go touring 2 up with weeks worth of luggage, this is probably not the bike for you. That kind of goes without saying. But for solo travellers, I think it's a really good solution. So whenever I do these bike reviews, whatever bike I ride, I always tend to really like it. There'll be bits I don't like, and to be honest, there's not that much I dislike about this bike. The seat, you know, could be more comfortable for longer journeys, but again, that's subjective. That could just be down to me. And the only other thing I've noticed about this bike is the side stand leaves the bike standing up quite tall. You've got to be sort of picky. I don't know what this lorry's doing. Does he stop for his lunch? You've got to be picky in terms of where you put the bike, because it stands very upright on the side stand, and if you've got you know, a slight amount of camber into the bike, you're standing it almost completely upright, or it's not going to stand up at all. But that's just one thing I've noticed. It just feels like the side stand's maybe half an inch too low. But outside of that, it's hard to pick faults in it. So if you're considering this bike already, or you're looking for an entry into adventure bike riding, then the 390 Adventure is a cracking little machine. It's quite light on your bank balance, it's quite light to ride, but it's incredible fun, and just for getting out and exploring, it's a wonderful machine. I know there's sometimes the macho element takes over and people go, no, I want a big bike with lots of horsepower, manly. But honestly, this thing will go places that you can go with any other adventure bike, and you do it not being scared that you're going to drop it and not be able to pick it up. You do it knowing if you can get yourself into problems on a green lane or down a byway, you can drag the bike out. It's not that difficult to do, and it's still just as much fun. If I was on a 160 horsepower adventure bike here, I can't really go any faster than I'm going now. You can only go as fast as you can see. The golden rule for me is, if I can stop in the distance that I can see, then I'm safe. You are going to come across cars, tractors, animals as you come around bends. So in that case, you're not going to go hurtling into a bend if you can't see what's around it. But I have to say, I've really enjoyed riding this. It's so much fun. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope it's been useful if it's a bike you're considering. I've tried to cover off the key points without making it too long and boring. So all that leaves me to say is, until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. I'm off to find some more interesting places to explore. If you like this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more of these types of reviews, as well as the gear reviews, and I've potentially got some very interesting new projects lined up, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to make sure you get notified of new videos, and I will be eternally grateful. Thank you.